Okay, why don't we get started? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the College Admissions Kickoff for the class of 2022. And we also welcome our guests from the class of 2023. It's never too early to start. We're happy that you're joining us. But just so that you know, this is really geared toward junior year, but you'll learn so much just from hearing a lot about what the counselors have to say about how we do the process, how you build a list, how you kind of do this whole college search thing. So welcome, everyone. For those of you who I haven't met, my name is Brenda Poznansky, and I am the Director of School Counseling and Admission. And with us tonight is our wonderful counseling staff, Mr. Dylan Mullen, who is our Associate Director of School Counseling, and our wonderful counselors, Ron Noel and Lisa Futrell. We will be sharing a lot of information with you. We are also recording this. So if you missed something and you didn't write it down, you can go back and revisit from the recording. We will also be putting up the PowerPoint on the counseling page. So look for that. And Mr. Mullen is actually gonna go over the counseling page to show you where things are in this presentation. But just know that each of the classes have a counseling page for the class of 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And we post things on a daily basis for that. So that's where you'll find the recording and the PowerPoint. So this is tonight's agenda. And so we are going to go over the timeline of college admissions, sort of what you need to think about each month as you head into the senior year. We're going to talk about the college search and building a college list, super important. That's a big question a lot of you had on the questions that you sent to us, which we really truly appreciate, so that we can build this program around what your concerns are. What colleges are looking for. We'll talk a little bit about that and sort of what is on the horizon after this last 10 months and what that looks like for our students next year. And then we have a lot of additional information, just what's going to be coming up in the spring, things to be looking out for, and then any questions and answers that you have. So if you want to wait to the end, we will have a question and answer, live question and answer, but you're always welcome to put things in the chat as well. Next slide, Mr. Mullen. So a lot of you in the questions and answer, the questions that you sent us, were asking questions about COVID and how is this going to affect college admissions and how has it affected, what's going to be different as we move forward. COVID definitely changed sort of how things happened over the last 10 months. First and foremost, it was, the campus visit obviously changed dramatically. Many campuses shut down and are still shut down, although many more are starting to open up for smaller and individual tours. So that's going to be dependent on your list of schools and what schools you do want to go and see. But almost every college has a virtual tour on their website. Even Bishop Girton has a virtual tour on our website. So a lot of those tours can be really, really helpful, especially if you're trying to discern whether or not this school is for you. One of the really nice things about virtual tours is that you can skip around. So if you're a student that's not at all interested in athletics, but you're really interested in the laboratories that they might have at the school, you can skip over the athletic facility and go right to the science labs. Or if you wanted to see the dorms, you want to get a sense of what that's like, you can skip over some of these things and really focus in on the things you're interested in. So virtual tours are really handy. They're not the same as going to visit, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but that's one of the big changes that happened. The application process, quite honestly, the overall application process did not change that much. Students this year, we're still using the Common App or the Coalition app. The process was changed because of testing, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the application process itself how to fill out your application, what you should put on your application and things like that had very little change from years past and probably future years as well. There was a little bit of a difference to deadlines. Deadlines changed a bit. Some were moved out a bit to give students a chance to finish their applications and have conversations with their schools. Our process did not change very much at all. We processed over 1,400 applications, which is a pretty typical year for us, by December 1st. And we're still processing, but we did about 1,400 by December 1st. And that is definitely a pretty typical year for us. So our students were pretty much on it, and they were really good about adhering to deadlines. We had to do the process a little differently. We didn't have as many kids stopping in our office, or we weren't able to capture them in the hallways as easily as in the past. So we did a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of emails, a lot of things like that. And the big question is it creating more competition for the incoming classes because of deferrals? Colleges have experienced quite a bit of deferrals, but not to the point where they're not going to be accepting students. They've been taking pretty big hits with students on campus, and when students don't live on campus, the room and board is really where colleges make money. They're going to want to fill their classes, and they're going to want to have very robust classes. So I don't think it's going to keep students out. I think the group of students it's going to affect the most is athletes, because of how they're offering students another year. The NCAA is offering students another year of eligibility. That's where it's going to backlog for a couple more years to come. But other than that, I think that the colleges will be very happy to have students. And quite frankly, the upper tier colleges, the most competitive colleges, the Ivies and kind of the Tufts and the BUs and the BCs, Northeastern type schools, John Hopkins, those kinds of schools have experienced an explosion of applications, and that's because the students didn't have to submit testing scores. So they've experienced an explosion of applications. So that's going to make it more competitive for that level school. But the, sort of the next tier down and below, those schools will be operating probably business pretty much as usual. What is the impact that testing has had on and its weight in admissions, the admission process? Well, testing this year was paused. So most of the colleges, in fact, about over, I think it was something like 2,000 colleges changed their requirements this year to not include standardized testing because students were unable to get to testing sites. That may change for next year because there will be schools that will go back to testing, no question. But many schools are revisiting this and using this year as sort of their test year, no pun intended, to see if they can make really good and sound decisions about their applicants without the standardized testing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to testing. But what students can do to add to their applications to enhance them, given the whole COVID situation, because many students aren't participating in a lot of things that they're usually participating in and put on their application. I just actually have been talking with NACAC about this. NACAC is the National Association for College Admission Counseling, and they sort of are our mothership of college admissions. And they have recommended for the students that many colleges are looking at what you've done in high school. So not just what you were able to or not able to do your junior year. They're looking for, your freshman year, what you did your sophomore year, and what you're still interested in. What you really need to do to enhance your application is going to be a little different than it was in the past. Because you weren't able to participate, you're going to have to really communicate with the admission office more. Students are going to have to take charge of this. They're going to have to email their representative. They're going to have to call their representatives. They're really looking for students to have good conversations, not just on an application, but in person. And so students, you're going to have to take charge of that. And we can help you do that, because that's what we'll do. We'll talk to you about that, and we'll give you information and the people of who you should call, but you're going to really have to do that. This year, there was a question on the common application that talked about what your school did for COVID. And that is really important, because our students were able to say that they had face-to-face instruction, and colleges are really looking for that. We also, in our recommendations and on our school profile, spoke about what Bishop Girton did since March of 2020. So there are some tweaks to the application. There are some things that will enhance the application in that way. But really, students, what they're saying across the board, colleges want to have conversations with you, real person conversations. So that's going to be on you to make sure that you do that. And like I said, we will help you get there. What has BG done to explain the delivery of education? And that's what we did. We had a paragraph in each of our students' recommendation. And because the counselors write recommendations for every single one of the students they're responsible for. No questions asked. That is our job, and we do that gladly for every one of the students we work with. We also put together the school profile. That's where the school profile comes from, is the counseling office information, and that's where we put another blurb about what BG did during the pandemic and how we delivered education. So hopefully COVID will be a word we don't use in our vocabulary very often in a few months, but it will impact admissions. We're just not 100% sure how yet. So students, like I was saying, this is your process. And so colleges don't want to hear from your parents. In fact, they don't really talk to parents. They want to hear from you. They may talk to your counselor, and you and your counselor can sit and make a phone call together or devise an email together. Your counselors will walk you through that, but this is really your process. And we don't want you to ever miss out on something because you didn't tell your counselor about it. So it's going to be important to have a lot of conversations with your counselor too, not just the colleges, but this is your process. And you don't want us following you around the hallways telling you to get going on your process. That can be embarrassing. So you want to take charge of your own process. And parents, this is the student's process. Your job is to be patient, patient, patient. Can I say it again? Patient. Because we look at it from an adult lens as we go through this process with our students, not as a student lens. So although we think it might be disorganized how they're going about it, students need to do it their way with our support. And we need to just consistently encourage the student to take ownership of the process. That's very, very important. Colleges can sniff out when a parent's done an application. They read these all day long. So they know when a parent has completed an application and not a student. And the counselor, this is the student's process. This is, we look at it where we want to offer support, encouragement, and guidance throughout the process, but we want it to be the student's process. We have no problem talking to parents and students together. We like to know where the family is coming from. It's a huge decision. So it is a family decision. But we also know that this is an incredible roller coaster for families, especially if it's the first time going through the process and it's all new. And it is emotional. It's, an end of an era of your child being home and in the house and going. And for students, it's an end of what you know. College is sort of a big black hole, but you know what you're supposed to do every day when you walk into BG. You know where to go, you know where your locker is, you know what the schedule is, you know what the dress code is. That's all going to change. And so that can be overwhelming. So it definitely is a roller coaster ride, but it's okay. We're the safety bar. We're going to hold you in seat. So just trust us to help you through it. this next bullet, the last bullet that says don't listen to anyone, probably sounds crazy. And why is she saying that? It's because everybody and their cousin thinks they know about college admissions. They all think they know exactly how college admissions is supposed to go. Well, we do this every day, all day, and we've done it with many, many, many students. And let me tell you, every year is different. This year with COVID, we didn't know what was going to happen. So we had to be on our toes. What happened 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago is not what's happening today. College admissions is a very organic process. Colleges change their requirements, they change how they do things, their level of competitiveness changes. So people will want to talk to you always about college admissions if they know you have a junior or senior in high school. And juniors, let me tell you, people will want to talk to you all the time. Where are you applying? You know, have you tried this school? This is where I went. And they'll say, how you doing? What college are you applying to? Instead of how you doing, you know, and find the answer or ask your name, they're going to ask you what college. Oh, you're a junior. Oh, you're a senior. What college are you applying to? And they're going to want to tell you their story. We're here to tell you that go to the professionals, go to the people who know what's going on. Or if we don't know the answer, you can always call us. If we don't know the answer, we have it at our fingertips. We'll find out. But promise me that you will not listen to people in the grocery store, on the sidelines of a game, or your relatives, because college admissions is not the same as it was even 5 years ago. We will connect you with the appropriate people, and or we'll try to get the answer for you. Okay, so promise me, pinky swear, that you will not listen to others and always let us know if you have a question. So right now, Mr. Noel is going to share with you the timeline.
Thank you, Mrs. Poznansky. As Mrs. Poznansky was talking about students, the process. Well, where do we go? Where do we start? How do we get going on this college going journey together? So the first start that we're going to start outlining is over the next few months. In January, we host a college kickoff meeting, which is tonight. So thank you all for taking some time to join us and hear about our process and how we're going to support you moving forward. And remember that this is a journey together, that we're all going to be walking together to support you throughout the next, until you walk across the stage senior year. As of right now, it's still business as usual with the College Board. They anticipate some test administrations in the spring along with the ACT. The information will be posted on the College Board website and the ACT website. Students, you have all signed up for a College Board account to access your PSAT scores, and that is how you're going to sign up for the SAT. Please be sure that you do monitor the College Board website. We have found this year, given the circumstances with COVID, there are times where test sites have been closed down, and College Board has not been reaching out to students to let them know about these closures. So it is your job to continue to monitor the page, make sure that after you've signed up for a test date, that you keep up with your registration to make sure that you will still be having a test on a particular day. I've looked up some of the testing dates, and we'll have this information on the class counseling page of 2022. But for the SAT, the 3 dates published for right now are March 13th, May 8th, and June 5th. For ACT, the test dates are April 17, June 12th, and July 17th. But again, please monitor the College Board website and the ACT websites for more information about this. Moving forward, please make sure that you make a habit of checking in on the class counseling page of 2022. We will be posting any information that we get from other College Board, different colleges, anything pertaining to scholarships, anything that to do with this college process will be on that website. So please start making a habit of checking it at least once a week. In February, it's a great time to make an appointment with your counselor. This is the time where you will sit down with your counselor and we can start talking to you about building your college list. What colleges would be the best fit for you? What are your future ambitions? What do you want to do beyond high school? We're here to help and we'll work with you one-on-one and work you through that list. Ms. Futrell will go into more depth about that in just a few minutes. After you meet with us, it'd be a great time to take a family vacation and go on some college tours during February break. Please make sure that you are paying attention to the various different college websites. Some colleges are hosting in-person tours and others are doing it virtually. They have the most up-to-date information, so please be sure you're checking those school websites. Also, as Ms. Poznanski had mentioned, we all write letters of recommendation for our counselees. We will be sending out a counselor questionnaire in February. Students, please make sure that you fill that out and get it back to us so we can help write the best, most effective letter for you for your college application. In February, you will also is the deadlines to sign up for some of the spring testing. So make sure you stay on top of those deadlines and make sure you're checking that College Board website. Otherwise, you'll also have to be paying a late fee along with the fee for the test. In March, if you are a student interested in military academy or joining the ROTC or possibly playing a sport through the NCAA, we need to know about that. There is a separate process that goes into those applications and getting you signed up for the NCAA. And so we need to know what's going on. So please make sure in March, if you haven't already talked to us about it in our meeting in February, by March that you've had that conversation with us. In March is the deadlines for the May and June standardized testing. So make sure that you have signed up for either an SAT or ACT by the March deadline, or else you will be incurring that late fee. Also in March, we will be hosting our course selection as we've done every year. During that time, it would be good to touch base with your counselor to talk about your schedule for next year. Are you taking the right classes that will help best support your journey as you move forward through the college application process? Is this going to set you up for success for what you want to do in your college years? During that night, we will be talking about the teacher recommendation form and how to go about filling it out and asking teachers. April's a very busy month, especially when it comes to college fairs, college tours. Please utilize NEAF, that is the New Hampshire Higher Education Association Foundation. They partner up with Plymouth State and host a fantastic virtual college fair. They also do a destination college, which is similar programming to what we're doing this evening, and they also have some additional workshops as well. Please make sure you visit their websites. Also is the NACAC Virtual Fair and the NEACAC Virtual Fairs. Those links are located here on our presentation. We will also post that on the class counseling page. In May, please make sure that you have turned in your counselor questionnaire so we can make sure we get going and writing up those and have them ready for you when you come back in the fall. The deadline to request your teacher letter of recommendations is May 15th. That needs to be shared with the teacher and the counselor. And again, we will go through this more so during course selection night. In June, July, and over the summer, this is also a great time to be taking some more time to go out and visiting college campuses. Please make sure that you are touching base with the colleges to let them know or to get the information of whether or not it will be a virtual tour or if they're doing an in-person tour. Hopefully the current conditions will be in a much better spot so that they can offer more physical tours, but who knows. If you are considering taking an SAT prep course, we do offer one at BG, so I highly recommend that you sign up for it. Keep in mind, students, that taking an SAT prep course is like taking another class. So think about your current course load of 7, 8 classes that you already have, and then to add on one more right now can seem very overwhelming. We recommend that you would wait until the summertime to do any SAT prep course. But if you do want to get a jump start on some things, you've all taken the PSAT and should have received your scores back. We'll be hosting our practice SAT next week, which we'll talk about more so. And then also through your College Board accounts, there is a link for Khan Academy, and they are a free service that will help give you some test prep options that will be helpful for you in preparing for the SAT. And then please make sure that you are visiting the counseling class page of 2022, 2023 for any updates. We post stuff there all the time as we hear back from colleges, the College Board, any sources that will be useful for you for the college process. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Futrell to talk a little bit more about the college search.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. So I'm going to talk about the college search and building your list. And it seems like a very overwhelming process because there's so many schools that you can look at and choose from. But when you really think about what you might be looking for and what fits you, it can really make it a little bit easier to come up with a school that might be right for you. So there are things to think about when you're doing your college search, and really what would be the best fit for you. So some of the things to think about is, do you thrive in smaller classes? If that's something that you know that you thrive in, so like classes that you had at BG, then maybe looking at smaller schools might be a better fit. If you enjoy the bigger class experience, maybe a university would be better to your liking. If you're very involved and you like doing, very things outside the box, and you like to be in a very, very busy environment like a city, then maybe a school that's more involved or in a city or has more things to do would be something to look at. If you think you want to do research or if you want to do study abroad, make sure the schools have that type of environment for you. So those are some of the things that when you're doing this search, you can kind of keep in the back of your mind and ask those questions as you are either talking to the counselors, doing the visits, if it's in person or if it's virtual. You can always email their admissions counselors if you're not able to do it on campus. So there's ways to get these questions answered. Is there a perfect college? I'm sure people will tell you in their experiences, Mrs. Poznansky said, you're going to hear people saying you need to do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sure for every student out there, there is a perfect college. You just have to go and search and find what fits best for you. And I think you get a feel when you're on the campus, whether or not it's a school that you could see yourself at. I know it's really hard now if you can't get on the campus, but the goal is that, at some point you'll have that opportunity. So what we've said to some of our students this year is even if you couldn't in the fall, hopefully in the spring, if you're accepted, you're able to have that opportunity. So for our current juniors, if things open up, throughout the year, they'll have that opportunity to visit more and see if they have that feel for the college and if they could see themselves on that campus. Is there going to be a diverse experience? What will they get from this school? Some of the other things to consider, the commute. We have a lot of students that sometimes feel like I'm going to go down south, Florida, Alabama. How will you feel being that far away if you can't come back in a few hours and you have to get on a plane? In the situation we're in now, if you can't up and leave, how would that be? How would you feel if you couldn't get home right away? Sharing a bathroom with more than one person, if you're used to having your own room and your own bathroom. If you share a floor with, the opposite sex, how would that be? Not having a car on campus, giving up your parents' cooking. All of those things are things that students have to consider when they're thinking about, that college experience. And while it's very exciting to say, I want to go to California because I want to get far away, especially being, stuck in a home and confined for so long. All those things, when you think about it, really, add up when you're thinking about, if there's something I need to get home for or that I need to, want to be home for, if it's a home cooked meal, or if I need medicine, or just whatever it may be, the holidays are things that need to be considered when you're looking at schools. The other things you need to think about, opportunities that you can take advantage of. Lots of students love the idea of studying abroad. And there are many, many colleges that offer this opportunity with host schools. That's definitely a question to ask. And when they offer it, there might be some majors that don't allow study abroad. I know nursing is one that sometimes it's difficult to do because of clinicals. But there are some schools that try to fit it in. So those are questions to ask if that is something you're interested in. Internships, job placements, co-ops. Those are all things that you can ask about when you are visiting or talking to their college representatives. Those are important factors when you're looking at schools and things that you might be interested in learning more about. Also, where do you want to live? You know, if you've been tired of living in New England and the change of weather at the drop of a dime, then maybe going down south and living someplace, you know, where it might be warmer, more consistently. However, if you're down south and there are hurricanes, how does that impact you, and what is your thought about that? So those are things that, you know, we want students to consider when they're thinking about the 4 years or longer that they'll be away from home. What do they have for facilities? If you are into health and fitness, do they have that for you? What's around the school? What can you do? Do they have transportation for you? Are there people that you know or places you can go? All of those things factor in when you're looking in your college search. So, you know, write a list of things that you really would like to find in a school, what's important to you, and use that when you're looking at schools. And if you're traveling over the next few months and you're, you know, and you're out and about, and let's say you go down south or out west, and there's a school there, and it's not maybe a school that you're interested in, but it's in an area that, you know, you want to see, it's a big school, it's a warm community. I'm going to see what it's like, just to get a sense of what a large school might be like or a small school would be like. And then at least you've been exposed to that, and you can say, oh, don't think I like a large university. And you can, you know, decide whether or not that would be the environment for you. So, you know, make that list and start thinking about what's important to you when you're thinking about your college search. Then when you have that information down, you can start building that list. And this is where it gets to be overwhelming, because there are so many schools that you can choose from. But realistically, you'll be able to pare that down when you start putting in the things that you want. And in a few minutes, Mr. Mullen's going to talk about SCORE, which is a tool we use to do searches on schools and kind of break down what you're looking for. We encourage students to look for 3 areas. So the reach, target, and realistic schools. A reach school is a school that is kind of just above where you would probably fit academically. So it's challenging. You may not meet their criteria based on their academics. You might be right under that, that bar that they're looking at. Maybe you have done a lot more outside of the box, like maybe you've volunteered, or you have done some type of internship on your own, or you've gone abroad, or you've done something that is different than other students that adds to your application. So that might be the thing that puts you over the edge when you're looking at a reach school. Your SATs might be stronger, maybe your grades a little bit lower. So if you don't meet their criteria, that would be a reach school. And you can find that information actually on SCORE when you're looking at your statistics, how you fit into each category and whether it's a reach, target, or realistic school. A target school is a school that's a good fit for many reasons. And that would be, you have the same target GPA, you fit right in that area, you've taken the classes that they're looking for, you meet their SAT requirements if that is a requirement that they're looking at. You have done either the athletics, or you have worked, or you have some background that they're looking for in terms of extracurricular or outside involvement. So those are things that put you in that target area for that school. And financially, it's also a school that, you know, after talking to your parents, fits in your budget. A realistic school is a school that is definitely within your acceptance range for every reason. It's everything you're looking for in a school. Academically, you know you can get in there. It's a comfortable school. Financially, you know you can afford it. And so it would be a school that would be a perfect school you could get into and enjoy if one of the schools that were maybe a target or reach wasn't something that fit, or you didn't get into. Remember, when you're building your list, that your list can vary from student to student, and not to listen to other people. That's one thing I want to make sure that you keep in mind. It's very personal, and it's for you. It's not for any other person. So not your friends list. It's not your parents list. They're going to help you build this list, but this is your list because you're the one that's going to be going to the school. So it's based on your needs, desires, and what works for your family. So of course, cost can play a big part in building this list and making a credible list. The list really should be balanced. So you should have a nice balance of reach, target, and realistic schools, and make it manageable. So if you're looking at 30 schools and you have 10 in each area, that's a lot to think about. If you get into all those schools, that's going to be a lot of decisions to make. So you might want to pare that down a bit and think, okay, what would be realistic for me and manageable? Maybe 5 in each area, maybe 4. What's going to work for you and your family? You're not going to be going to 20 schools, 30 schools. So what works for you? A good range seems to be about 12. That seems to be a nice number for students. 15 is what we see, because also involved with doing these applications is a cost. And that cost for some schools can be $50. Some are $70, some are $80, some could be up to $100 each. So when you're talking about paying for these applications, it does add up. So we do have students that might apply to, 20 or 30 schools, and that can really, get to be expensive. So if you're just throwing in a school just to throw in a school, really think about, what you're looking for and what works for you, because that cost can really add up. And, we want to make sure you're applying to schools that fit that list or what you might like. Too many schools on a list can be too many schools, and it can be difficult. So when you're going through the process and you're building this list and you're looking at score and trying to figure it out, this is where we'll help you kind of break down what might work and what might fit in your list and feel comfortable for you when you're thinking about this the whole college process. And that's why the virtual tours and the visits really help, kind of getting a sense of what you feel like or what you might like. And knowing that what they might have for a major, or if they have a number of majors, if that would be helpful for you. So if you think you might want to do business, but you're not sure you want to do business, I wouldn't encourage you to apply to Bentley, for instance. If you're kind of on the edge, being a business school, Bentley may not be the school that you want to go to. Maybe you want to look for schools that have more than just business. So we talk about that, whether or not, having a school that only focuses on a certain major or an area is the right fit. If not, what other schools can we look at? So we work with you to keep all those things in mind when you're working on this list. And you can save your list and score and move it around, and we can actually add things on that list for you when we're working on it. So again, we'll use SCORE or the College Board to build your list. You'll meet with us and we'll go over the list, and you can also work with your parents on this list and talk about it and do the virtual visits with them. I think that's very important. Start with a big list and narrow it down. And I think that's a great way to do it. You can put, the ones you love, the ones you like, and the ones you're not sure of, and then you can kind of weed them out that way. And I think it's important, if you're going to work with your parents on this, that maybe you meet once a week. Don't do it every day. Don't harp on it. Maybe talk about it once a week, or when you're starting out, sit down and say, okay, let's look at the list and what's going to work. Because you don't want to get overwhelmed by this process. Right now, we want you to enjoy thinking about it and what's ahead, because it's a very exciting time. Even though there's a lot going on, it's very exciting to think about what's in store for you over the next 4 years. Make your visits in person or virtually and sculpt that list that way. Make sure you use our counseling class page that Mr. Mullen will show you to look at what virtual fairs are coming up. This is a great way to talk to the admissions people and ask some of the questions about, do you have, study abroad? Do you have internships? Where do people go to do their internships? Where do students get placed when they're done? You know, what's your retention rate? How long are students at your school? Those are questions you can ask when you talk to them at the virtual fairs. And then when we get to the point when we start doing this process with you, we want to make sure you pay close attention to the deadlines for admissions. So right now, you don't have to worry about this yet, but when we start talking about the application process, most students use the Common App. That is a one application that you can submit to many, many schools. And schools have different deadlines. Early action, there's now early action 1 and 2. There's also early decision. There's early decision 1 and 2, regular decision, and rolling admissions. There's some other ones that they use as well, but these are the basic ones that are there. Early action means you are applying early. You can apply to many schools, and there is no, it's not like it's binding. Early decision is a binding commitment. It means you can apply to one school early decision, and if you are accepted to that school, you have to take all other college applications out, and you will be attending that college. So that's the difference between early action and early decision. If you apply early decisions to schools, you can still apply early action to other schools. It's just if you are accepted early decision, you have to withdraw the other applications. Early action 1 and 2 and early decision 1 and 2, that just means you're applying early action, which is usually either October 15th, November 1st, or November 15th. Same thing with early decision, it's the same time frame. And early action 2 and early decision 2 is usually a later deadline. So it's usually maybe later in December or early January. Regular decision is January 1st, February 1st. They've changed a little bit just because of COVID. So there's been some January 15th deadlines. And rolling admissions means that it is a rolling time frame. So what that means is that you can apply at any time, and usually after a few weeks, you'll hear from them. If you apply early action, you usually hear in December for most parts, unless you're applying for a nursing program, engineering program. Sometimes you might hear in January instead of hearing in December. Same thing with early decision. So the time frame for when you hear if you apply early action or early decision is earlier than if you apply regular decision. And for most colleges, or for all colleges except an early decision application, your decision on where you're going to attend, you have to do that by May 1st. So you have to decide and apply or give your deposit May 1st. Early decision, they give you a time frame when you have to give that deposit. So it's not that May 1st. That's pretty much the difference between all those, but we will sit down and talk to you about those deadlines more specifically once we start that process. Now, Mr. Mullen is going to go over SCORE and how that process works.
Thank you. So the kind of the trend that's been going on amongst all the slides so far is that, you know, the two big pages that we really want you guys to get used to using are SCORE, which is going to be your college resource tool. If you have older siblings or your parents have used Naviance before, we basically just replaced SCORE or replaced Naviance with SCORE. We found that it was more user-friendly and just offered more from your perspective when doing college research and whatnot. So we kind of phased that out. So if you got an email from me today, it means that you had not previously registered for SCORE, which is fine. You haven't had really a need to use it yet. But if you did get an email from me today, please make sure to create your account. And that's all you have to really do for now, because the link is only good for 48 hours. After that, we'll have to resend it to you. But if you didn't get an email, it means you've already created your account, which is fine. I'm going to show you guys SCORE right now. So just bear with me for 1 second, because this is kind of what you guys will see when you do it. So once you log in to SCORE, you're going to see a bunch of information about yourself on there. So you'll see all your information that you've entered in, or we've entered in, I should say. And this is only for your view. It's not like anybody from colleges see it or anything like that. But what you want to do is when you go to colleges up here in the top left-hand corner, you just click on this, and every college in the United States is going to be on here. Okay, so you can just click on any school that's going to be on here, and it'll give you the facts about the schools based off of what we have for information that's going to be reported to us. Okay, If you want to go to the search icon up here next to our colleges and just click on that, this is going to take you to a search tool. It's going to ask you a number of questions. The more information you put in here and the more specific you are, the more refined your list is going to be. Now, what this list is going to give you does not mean that it's a guaranteed acceptance for you. So if you see 100% match or whatever it's going to be, that simply means that based off of the information you put in this left-hand column here, your colleges right here matches 100% of that. So as you can see, if you look at Adelphi, for example, you're going to see the information here that they provided us based off of all of the college information. If you click on a specific school, you can kind of see a scattergram plot of BG students. What they'll show up as is 3 different colors, green, blue, and red. You'll be able to see the green were all the students that were accepted, blue were waitlisted, and red were denied. So again, it's just kind of information for you guys when you're going through the process. If you're looking at a school and you don't see any information on it, that means that either one, none of the students were turned in their acceptance, waitlist, or denies to us, or we haven't had any students apply, which is common in some of the schools. So remember that next year when we ask you for all of your acceptance, waitlist, and denies for us, so you can help future class. But again, this is just a tool for you guys to use when you go through it. When you get into senior year and you go back to your dashboard, there's going to be things you have to enter in for. It says colleges, like, and then under my colleges. So any college you're interested in between now and next fall, just enter it into the suggested or following school. So if you meet with your counselor, we might suggest a school to you and we might enter it in ourselves. This is a dummy account, so this person doesn't exist, so we can't enter any information into it. But if I'm sitting in my office with a student, or Mr. Noel, Mrs. Poznansky, or Mrs. Futrell are, and you say you're interested in the school, we can just add it to here because it'll say add school. That way it just shows up on your account and you can see it. And then as you progress throughout the college process, you'll be able to move it from column to column to column. Ultimately, if it's applied to and you apply next year, you would just slide everything over to here. And then as you do that, information pops up for you as far as how you're applying, which is what Mrs. Futrell was talking about. And then kind of like what your status is. So again, that would be what you would give us, this time and later next year. And then for scattergrams, again, depending on the school, you'll be able to see all that information. Manage documents, you can see what information has been sent to schools. And the big thing is, if you ever have a question about what information has been sent to the school, just please reach out to your counselor. We can show you a different view than what you would normally see, and we'll be able to kind of ease some stress that's inevitably going to happen when you get to that point. So again, if you have questions about that, just please ask us and we'll do whatever we can to get you guys used to that. Okay. So if you already have an account, try to familiarize yourself with this. If you haven't had an account, it's okay. Just check your email that was sent from me. And all you have to do, I think, is click on the hyperlink and it takes you right to the homepage, which looks like this. And then you would just hit begin and you would just create an account. It's going to automatically populate it with your BG email. And I think you enter in your own password. So if that's the case, you just have to enter that in. And we recommend you save that in your notes section of your phone or somewhere where you're not going to lose it. That way, it's just easier for you to log into. Most people save their passwords on their computers now, so it really is a moot point. But again, if you got the email, just make sure to take care of it in the next 48 hours. Otherwise, the link will expire and then we'll have to do it over again, which is not a big deal. We'll just resend it to you guys. Okay. So we're on score right now. And then, like I said, I showed you guys the information on the college tab. Oops, I'm sorry. College tab, and then underneath the information under colleges for the college search. And then again, as you become seniors, there's more information you're going to have to enter into it. But we will walk you guys through this process at the beginning of your senior year. And then as you progress throughout each of the pieces of the college process with us, we'll walk you through it and make sure that you're understanding it all and that it's done in there correct. Because this is how we will process all of your information. And we'll walk you through it step by step next year. We just kind of wanted you guys to be aware of SCORE because you really hadn't been introduced to it prior to, and just so you can start familiarizing yourself with it. Like Mrs. Futrell said, you don't have to use SCORE. If you're more comfortable with College Board, that's okay. But the big thing is any school you're interested in or you want to apply to has to be into your SCORE account because that's how we process information. And again, we'll walk you through that next year, but we just kind of want to make sure you're aware of it and just start using it if you're ever curious about what colleges have what information is out there. You can also schedule virtual tours through SCORE if the schools are offering that. So again, if you're looking at a specific school and you're on their page, you can actually schedule a tour through SCORE that will then link up with the admissions page of that school. And you can kind of go through there to run the actual virtual tour if that's something you wanted to pursue. And then the next thing, this has also been mentioned numerous times. This is probably, if we had to pick a site, I would say the most important thing for you guys. Any information that's going to be present on your page next year or this year is information that we feel is necessary for you. So as you can see by the arrow, and I'll pull it up in a few seconds, it's underneath the classes tab. So the students have access to this, parents don't, but students can see this under the counseling class of 2022. The important thing is that when you're looking at it, you go to the counseling class of 2022. I know there's something called the class of 2022, which is where I think student council or other people post their information. That's totally separate from what we do. The counseling class of 2022 is where we're going to post all information. And as you can see, all 4 classes have a page. So I'll pull up the page right now and just show you guys what's on there, because there already is some relevant information that you're going to want to see. Sign back in, give me 1 minute. Okay, so like I said, it's underneath the counseling class page. You'll see all 4 of them on here. If you just click on your counseling class of 2022, you'll see welcome to junior year. You'll see that we've created a wellness page. I know we promoted that with you guys a few weeks ago, and this is just links that we put together for some mindfulness meditation, yoga, exercises, and whatnot. But there's already a lot of information on here, as you can see, and we've been posting this since you guys were in high school. It's just that as you get further along, the information becomes more relevant to all of you. So there's 3 tabs. There's kind of the links and the downloads, and then just kind of general information we feel like you guys need to know. So as you can see, we have information on here about handling quarantine. After we get done with this, I will post the recordings of this, the college checklist timeline that Mr. Noel and Mrs. Futrell talked about. And then as we get closer to March, we'll post the teacher recommendation forms. And then next year, we'll post the transcript request forms. Everything we're moving towards like a digital way of doing it. It just streamlines the process for all of us. But as you can see, we've got a lot of information on here regarding webinars in California, Catholic colleges, fall virtual visits at Fordham, ACT and SAT updates. Anything that comes into us, we post on here because we think it's important for you guys to know. As you enter into senior year, you're going to see a lot of information on the links and the downloads regarding scholarships too. This is an easy way for you guys to take advantage of opportunities that get brought into our office. I will post the links for downloads on here for you guys to take advantage of, and then you submit everything through whatever avenue these links are offering. But as you can see, we have a lot of information in here already about visiting colleges, information about colleges, upcoming virtual college admissions events. And these are broad college admissions events, so that's why it's not focused like the Fordham one was up here. There's hundreds of schools on here that are offering admissions tours. And again, it's just up to you to find whichever school or schools you're interested in and kind of go through it. If you have a question or if you're the first student going through, you can click on the tour checklist and it can kind of see what's out there, what information you would need to do while you're going through it. All right. So again, that's under the class of 2022 counseling class under your classes. And we'll put any information on there that we think is relevant for you guys to get used to. And then I'm going to pass it back over to Mrs. Poznansky once we get back to the PowerPoint regarding some testing and whatnot.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. So everybody take a breath. Take a nice cleansing breath. We've given you a lot of information. We know this can be really overwhelming, and we could do a 4-hour seminar on college admissions for sure. What we're sharing with you is the most important pieces of it. We're happy to delve into any one of these areas a little bit more with your student, with you parents. We're happy to have those conversations. So testing, the worst acronyms known to man are SAT and ACT, I swear. So here's the thing about testing. this year, as I said, thousands of schools did not have testing as part of their admission criteria. No one believed us. The seniors and their parents did not believe us. The frenzy around testing was unbelievable. And part of it is that we've known for most of all of us, testing has absolutely been part of it. Testing has also been, for many students, scary, overwhelming, the one thing they may or may not get into college because of, but times are changing and more schools are dropping testing than ever before. So when we share the information with you that we know, trust us, it's not coming from our opinion. It's coming from what the colleges are telling us, or what the College Board is telling us, or what ACT is telling us. And this year was really a year that the students didn't have to worry about, but they were very worried about it. So here's the thing about testing. Testing is never going to be the most important thing to get into a college, ever, ever, ever. It just isn't. Colleges are going, in fact, just the opposite way. They're looking at a much more holistic approach, looking for students that are well-rounded, students who are 3-season athletes, students who are contributing to their community, students who are involved in things that, you know, help them grow and mature and change, and look for students who are hungry to learn and hungry to be in school. So the testing is a snapshot in time. It's a one-day thing for 3 hours. And how does that ever show anybody what a student is capable of? So colleges are really moving to a much more holistic approach than they are more of a criterion approach. So I'm going to talk about testing, and you probably will have to do testing for some of your schools and certainly for some of your majors. But you register for testing through the College Board and or the American College Testing Association organization, which is ACT. Typically, students test for in the spring of their junior year and fall of their senior year. Most colleges, if they are requiring testing, are going to want to see at least 2 test scores, one from junior year, one from senior year. Now, we don't know what the spring testing is going to be this year. We just don't know. We're hoping that test sites will be open by May and June. I don't think that they will be open earlier than that for testing, but you're going to have to search around. We are not a test site. We've never been a test site. We did a special test for seniors this October because of the concern that was out there, and because College Board was being really lenient about allowing other schools to be test sites. It's a long process, but you have to apply and you have to be accepted. And this year they were so frantic because so many places were shutting down. They let us have a school day test for just BG students. We are not planning to do that again. It was a one-time thing, or do we know if they'll let us do it again? So we're going to just advise you to keep looking around, register for the SAT, but as Mr. Noel said, you're going to have, or the ACT, you're going to have to check your accounts, your College Board or your ACT account, to see if the test is a go. We don't have that information, and College Board does not share that with students. The test site will share it with you if they can. We did hear from a couple of high schools that let us know what students from Bishop Girton were going to be at their test site, and asked us to tell them the requirements of the test site and if the test was going to run or not. And it was nice of them to do that, but it was one of those things where they knew 24 hours ahead of time whether or not this test was going to go. And so we were frantically getting in touch with students to let them know so they didn't drive, someplace in central Massachusetts, 2 hours away from home for 7:30 in the morning to take a test that was not going to be administered. So we will try to keep you as up to date as possible about testing. It's just going to be a little tricky. I was on a webinar with College Board today, as a matter of fact, and they are hosting, as Mr. Noel said, he gave you some of the dates. They are also hosting, an August test again this year, October, November, and December. So there should be plenty of time, even in the fall, to be able to take another test. And if you can't get a test in this spring, you're not alone. Everybody in the country is going through this. This is not something that's just Bishop Girton students or students in southern New Hampshire, northern Massachusetts. So if you have any questions, absolutely get on the College Board and the ACT website. They have a lot of information about COVID and how it's affecting them. But the College Board also has other features. As Mr. Noel said, and Mrs. Futrell and Mr. Mullen, they have opportunities to do college searches, building lists. They have big future days that are on our class pages. It's February 6th, 23rd, March 7th, and March 11th. They're huge virtual college fairs, but they're divided into different areas of the country. So if you're kind of thinking you would like to go to the West or the Southwest for college, February 6th is that virtual fair. And that information is on the College Board website, but also on how to get there is on our website. And you just have to, they're free. You just have to register 5 days prior to the date of the virtual fair. But they have them all divided across the country. So it would be a really good idea to tap into one of those and just kind of see what it's all about. The College Board also has a scholarship program. It's a 6-stage scholarship program, and it's really simple. All you have to do is do what they say, build a list, register for your SAT, and you get entered into scholarship competitions, like a raffle type of thing. So it's really an easy program, but take advantage of some of those things because you learn a lot from them too. So it's worth doing that. Okay. So the thing about testing too that I'd like you to remember is that some programs will require testing. They didn't this year, but across the board, but some colleges still ask for that. The military academies are going to ask for testing. Typically nursing programs, physical therapy programs, engineering programs will look for testing. But not generally speaking. For very specific programs, they will. And again, it depends on the college and it depends on what their criterion is. In so many ways and in so many answers, we use the word depends. And in college admissions, everything depends. There's no generalizations, really. Most of it is dependent on the specific colleges you're looking for, the particular student who is asking the question and what their background looks like. So we use the word depends a lot, and it's not to avoid answering the question. It's mostly because that's the only answer we can give. It really depends on the college. But most colleges will look for these components when they're evaluating an applicant. The first thing they're going to look for is the quality of the coursework that you're taking. So one of the really nice things about being a BG student is the quality of your coursework is college prep from the first class you take to the last class you take. Every class at BG is a college prep class. That's why you have to do a paper in PE. And that's why theology is important, for not just for that reason, but those classes are important because they're all considered college prep. They're adding to your GPA. And that's, they want to see that. Colleges want to see that. They want to see how many units of classes you're taking. So did you only take 2 years of a language, or did you take 4 years of language? Did you take 3 years of math or 4 years of math? Did you take that extra science elective in your junior year? Or did you take another course because you're more interested in government, so you took a government course or something like that? So they're looking at the quality of the coursework. They're also looking at the quantity of the coursework in individual disciplines. We have a pretty robust graduation requirement, or we have requirements, I should say. So you have to take 4 years of English. It's recommended you take 4 years of math and science. It's recommended that you take 3 years of a world language. Those opportunities, take advantage of it, BG, because that's what colleges are looking for. They're looking for really quality coursework. Obviously, they're going to look at your grade point average. Now, a grade point average is unique to each individual student because it's a makeup of what courses you've taken. Some students, take, the course, not AP and honors courses, but they do really well in every one of their courses and they have a good GPA. Play to your strengths. Don't think at this point in time in your junior year, you're gonna get into a really competitive college if you haven't been doing honors and AP and you load up on your senior year, because they want to see sort of a grade point average over the history of your years in high school. So challenge yourself. Don't give up on senior year. Definitely when you're choosing your classes for senior year, you want to make sure that you're keeping to a really solid and good curriculum. For the sophomores that are on the call here, absolutely challenge yourself your junior year. Again, playing to your strengths. That doesn't mean that you take 4 AP courses when you've never, it's not really where you're best at. So make sure you have that conversation with your counselor. And again, like I said, grade point averages are tricky. We have a weighted grade point average on a 4.0 scale. So the middle A is a 4.0. So that's how our grade point averages are factored. If you are in an honors course, an A is 4.3. If you're in a AP course, it's a 5. So it goes up incrementally. So students who have never taken an honors course or an AP course do fine in the college admissions process. Why? Because of 1 and 2. They do fine because of the quality of the coursework. And if they have a good grade point average, they're going to do okay in the college admissions process. Test scores, recommendations, extracurricular involvement in the essay are the next, sort of the next tier of things that colleges are going to look at. And this year, obviously, test scores weren't even in this criterion to even consider. So if test scores are considered, it's not that they're the number 3 thing they're looking at, it's one of the things they're looking at. Colleges will also take the best test score. So if you take an SAT or an ACT 2 or 3 times, they're going to take your best score in each of the categories. Recommendations are going to be extremely important in the upcoming year because things have changed in college admissions. And like I said, conversations are going to be more important. A recommendation is a conversation between the admissions reader and your teachers and your counselors. So you want to make sure that when you're asking a teacher for a recommendation, that you are indeed having a conversation with them so that you know if it's the right person to ask and or they understand where you're coming from, what you want to do, what colleges you might be interested in. If you don't know those answers, you can still give ideas of what you're thinking about. We will help you pick the right teachers to ask, but you have to really talk to them. And there's a process here that, as we were saying before, that there is a recommendation form that you have to send to your teacher and ask them to fill out. And there's questions that are on that are specific to help the teacher understand you a little bit more. But a personal conversation with that teacher is going to be really important. We'll be doing this process when we do course selection, which is in March. So, but you can have that conversation with your teacher now. And you can have your conversation with your counselor now as to who would be the right person to ask to write you a letter of recommendation. And sometimes it's not the best sometimes it's not the course you're doing the best in. That's not a very compelling recommendation. If you have an A+ in a course and you just get the information, it's really easy for you, it's not a compelling recommendation. But if it's a course that you have to really work in and you've gone for extra help and you've worked really well with groups and you've gone for tutoring with one of the NHS students or something like that, those are compelling recommendations because they can really speak to your integrity and your grit, which is really important for teachers to speak about in recommendations. And certainly your counselor, as I said earlier, that we will automatically write a recommendation for you. And our recommendations are more global. We talk about how you fit within the school, activities that you're involved in, that kind of thing. And your counselors will be sending out a questionnaire for you as well to help them write your recommendation appropriately. Extracurricular involvement. This is everything from you have to work after school to being involved in every club and organization you can think of. What they're looking for here, though, is not that you have a list of 20 activities. What they're looking at is how committed you are to those activities. How long have you been doing it? How many hours do you do it? And do you have any leadership roles in those activities? Are you a team leader? Are you a manager? Are you someone who is always, there waiting to be a worker bee? Leaders can be quiet leaders. They don't have to have a title. But if you headed up something in a club or organization that was not something you had to be the president of the organization for, that's leadership. So they want to see leadership and commitment, not a laundry list of how many things that you do. The last thing that is really important and not to be taken lightly is the essay, because this is your chance to let the college know who you are. And this is an essay about you, which always stumps students. This is one of the hardest parts of the application process for students. It kind of stops the whole application process in its tracks, because the essay is really an essay that is not an essay that you have to analyze literature or do a biography or answer questions to. It's a real deep dive into who you are and what you want the college to know about you. And we'll go over this a whole lot in senior year. We also have an essay writing class that we offer over the summer that we will break this down and sort of unpack how you go about this, because it can be pretty overwhelming. And there is not only one essay on the application. Contrary to popular belief, there are more essays than just the Common App essay on these applications, because colleges can have supplements. So we can get into all of that senior year. Don't start stressing about that now. But we do have the essay writing class in the summer, and your English teachers do a great job in the fall with all of the seniors in getting them ready to get that essay done. So additional information, military academies, we touched on that a little bit. Meet with your counselor immediately if you're thinking of applying to one of the military academies. The process is a little bit more lengthy and it requires more things. You have to get nominations from your Congress people. So you want to make sure that you talk with your counselor because there are some things you're going to have to do starting this spring. Financial aid and scholarships. Federal and college financial aid programs have changed over the years. The new deadline is October 1st. If any of you had older children, the deadline was January 1, where you wanted to, or when it would open up and you would want to get it, your information in as close to possible to that deadline. October 1st is when the FAFSA opens, and you can, it's a prior year, so you're going to be doing your information on the year prior. Also, this is the FAFSA is the only way to get federal funding. So everybody who's interested in any sort of federal funding or work study money or anything like that from colleges, you want to fill out a FAFSA. We will have a financial aid night, and that slide will be coming up in a minute, but we always host a financial aid night to go over that process to help you out with that. We do have loads of scholarships, as Mr. Mullen showed you on the class pages. Whenever the scholarships come in, we put them up there. So scholarships will start coming in for juniors to apply by the fall in May and June. So always be checking that page. That page is going to be really helpful for you. And if we have any information from any, financial aid sites that we feel would be important for you to have, we're going to post it on the class page. The NCAA Eligibility Center is for any student who is interested, potentially wants to play sports in college. Whether you know that now or not, it's always good to register with the Eligibility Center. The college, so you go to the NCAA site and fill out the form, and there is a fee, but fill it out, because if you decide to walk on a team once you get to your campus, you still have to have this filled out. But if you fill it out ahead of time, it will not delay the process once you're in college. Once you register with the Eligibility Center, you need to let Mrs. Bedard know so we can send out your transcript. So make sure that if you do that, you let your counselor know, or Mrs. Bedard, our administrative assistant, so that we can make sure that your transcript, they want the end of the year junior transcript and then a senior transcript. So if you don't tell us, we don't know you did it. So again, students, this is your process, and you got to kind of take control of that. You can register for the Eligibility Center tonight. It doesn't matter when you register. So you can register tonight if you want. But you definitely want to do it by the end of your junior year, if you're at all interested in potentially playing college sports. College athletics and coaches, this we just add because it's a difficult and confusing process, and sometimes can be quite disingenuous. So be very careful when college coaches are wooing you, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to make sure that you really know what the deal is with them contacting you. You can always contact coaches, but just be really careful about the process. Over the years, we've had many students who thought they were going someplace and they were dropped at the last minute as a recruit. And then you're back to square one. So be very, very careful. Ask us any questions you want about this process. It can be very tricky. So just be aware of that. Here are the upcoming activities. Our free practice SAT with Revolution Prep. It is a practice test. It goes nowhere. It's just a practice, and it's not through the College Board, on January 30th. For some of you who were absent for the PSAT in October, you were contacted by me this week about the makeup exam on Tuesday, January 26th here at EG. So you want to make sure these two are very separate. The PSAT is through the College Board that makes you eligible for National Merit Scholarship Competition. This does not. This is a practice SAT just for you. It's absolutely worthwhile to get as much practice for these standardized tests as possible. I would strongly recommend, if you haven't taken this free, if you haven't signed up for this free practice test, that you do, because it can never hurt. And it's really helpful information as to how to sit for these exams when you get the results. Each year we have a Bishop Girton College Fair. We were unable to have it obviously this spring. we're really, really, really hoping that we're going to be able to have some sort of college representatives on campus in the spring, even if it's in the parking lot. We're going to really try to have some kind of college fair, if we can. So that's to be announced. And again, we will make sure through push pages and all that you're aware. The summer programs, last year we had a very, very busy and robust summer program of many courses offered. Mrs. Futrell was our point person there. She was the director of the program and did an amazing job. So you'll see some enrichment programs this summer and some college programs. So be aware and be on the lookout for that. There is a Cardinal Newman Catholic College Fair coming up on February 6th. Again, that's a virtual fair. Worth a try. Try to, get used to doing the virtual fairs. I think that's going to be how most of the fairs are done, at least for the rest of this spring. I'm not so sure about the fall. But summer going into senior year, we recommend that you work, volunteer, do some enrichment. Don't just sit around. Try to do something that you feel that you can talk about on your college application, and do it because it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do than to sit and not do anything. And parents of the class of 22 college information night for the senior year, which is when we'll really go over the mechanics of how you apply, what the Common App is all about. All of that, we'll really break that down, and that's going to be in early September. It's usually the week right after Labor Day. Our financial aid night is already scheduled for September 28th, so mark your calendars. And application deadlines start October 1st. So all of this, once summer's over, we're starting to get on that treadmill and going pretty quickly for what happens with all this, with the college applications. And we will, again, walk you through that. So don't despair. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know to keep on the timeline and to keep, the pace that Mr. Noel was talking about with your timeline, and ask us any questions that you have. That's why we're here. We're very willing to help you out and see you through this, because it can be an overwhelming process. But I think Mr. Mullen or Mr. Noel or Mrs. Futrell mentioned this. We ask that you meet with your students, you meet with your parents once a week to discuss college admissions. It's like, anything. If somebody's asking you every day, you get really angry or overwhelmed or anxious, or you're not going to see any progress if you're the one asking. So if you give each other a week of space, you might see more progression in this process. So if it's a Sunday afternoon and you sit and have coffee, or you do it on a Monday night, whatever you choose and what is best for your family, we highly recommend you have a meeting once a week, not every day. Because if you think about it, if your boss is asking you every day, did you do that project? Are you finished that report? Are you want to hide from them every time you see them. Well, we want to make sure that parents and students still love each other at the end of this. And that's why we're here, to help navigate that and to help you through that. So meeting once a week might help. So, and we look forward to being your partner through all of this process. It's exciting. And so it can be really, really fun as well. And there's a lot of really wonderful colleges out there. And as Mrs. Futrell was saying, there is a college for everyone. And there's over 4,000 colleges though. And sometimes culling that down to what's the most important for you or the right one for you can be really, really tricky. But again, we're here to help. So we're going to open it up for some questions. If there's anybody who wants to, Mr. Mullen, we're going to have to unmute people. Okay, so if you want to unmute and ask a question, I don't know that I don't know if we're going to have the junior ring ceremony. I don't know that. I'm sorry. I'm sure there will be information that's shared. For the makeup, PSAT on Tuesday for juniors. Whoop. someone answer that? Yes, we are going to have summer classes like last year. I didn't get the PSAT question. Did anybody get that from the chat? Okay,
Love you. I love you. Such a good boy.
okay. Let's see. For the makeup PSAT on Tuesday for juniors, do we need to bring anything and should we wear our uniform? Nope, it's free dress. You do not have to bring anything except if you want a water, you can bring a water. But we have pencils for you, tissues, cough drops, we're all set. And we are going to have a summer program like last year. That is our hope. And in that summer program, we will have an SAT prep course and an essay writing course, as I mentioned. Applying to international universities, yep, we do have a lot of information on that. It's a very different process than it is for domestic colleges. We get information from schools like Edinburgh and the UK system all the time. If your son or daughter is interested in that, have them contact their counselor and we can talk that through. The process is extremely different and the timeline is a bit different. It's not a common application like most of our domestic students use. It's a UK grown type of program and application, and it's pretty stark. And if they are interested in you, they contact you and then you apply. So it's a little different. It's a very interesting program. You can unmute and ask the question so you don't have to type it in. I'm not sure what you mean by the last SAT date. They go into, if for juniors going into your senior year, the last date that we would recommend that you would take the SAT or ACT would be in December of your senior year.
December.
Alexa, set the heat to 66.
No, I had just meant that earlier this winter, they had continually been canceled.
Yeah, and they might still be.
Okay.
Yes, they might still be. That is dependent on each community. That has nothing to do with the College Board. The College Board is willing to have the test run. It's just whether or not the city or town where the school that is hosting the administration can be open with visitors.
Okay.
I just don't want to miss any questions here, so.
Simon asked about the summer courses for credits like last summer. I know that we've talked about it, so I think that it's something we'll be talking about, as we get closer to the summer. I'm not sure what they will be, but it's something that the administration will be talking about and looking what might be available. It will be based on what teachers we might have, so that will have to be something they discuss. So that's a question Simon asked. The next question was the benefits of applying to a Catholic school for a BG student. I know that for many of the kids that apply to some of the local schools that are Catholic schools, there is some perks if you went to BG, and you get some extra money for going to a Catholic school from the Catholic college. So that's always a nice little benefit. Like I know St. A's gives extra money if you go there. I think Stonehill has done that as well. Assumption, and there's some other Catholic schools that will give extra money towards tuition. And then which test is preferred for college entrance, ACT or SAT? It really is the student's preference. Some students feel they do better with the ACT because it's a broader scope. So colleges will look at them the same. It really is the preference of the student. So that's kind of how you look at that. It's, the SAT was more an East Coast test. The ACT was a West Coast test. Now it's kind of just, a student preference. So you can take either or. So when, the COVID hit, a lot of students were looking to just see which one they could take. So some students will take an SAT and ACT, and if they feel they did better on the ACT, they might take that one again. So that's really preference. The
And
next question.
there was a question about how many times that you can take it. That's really up to the student. We don't recommend that you take it more than twice. Your scores do not change that much. And they definitely will not change if you don't do something in between the two testing administrations. So one of the things that College Board is really good about is giving you information. And that's why the PSAT is so important, because it breaks down the entire test and tells you where your challenges are and where you do really well. So you want to focus on some of the challenging parts. And as Mr. Noel said, you can go on to Khan Academy. There are other practice tests that you can take and things like that. And that's how you're going to get better. But taking them over and over again as a real test is not the way to do that. Doing the practice is a better way. And colleges, like I said, will take the two best scores that you have. You know, in the SAT world, it would be reading and writing or your math. In the ACT, it's a composite score, so they look at that a little differently. But the point is that you can over-test, and scores do not change that dramatically. So be careful of that. And again, that's another conversation with your counselor. Any other questions? Is there a benefit to taking each test one time? Sure. You mean between an ACT and an SAT? Like Mrs. Frutrell was just saying, some students do better on one than the other. So it's always a good idea to give both of them a try. Some students find ACT much more difficult for some reason. So you would think it was the opposite, but it's really not. They find that the way test is designed is a little bit different than sort of how they're used to taking tests. So they find that a little bit more challenging.
Oh, almost time.
Okay, what other questions do we have? No, they got rid of the subject test 2 days ago. We didn't, most colleges don't look for subject tests, but they did get rid of the subject test and the essay 2 days ago, the College Board, and they made that decision based on what colleges were telling them and how colleges were using them. There were very few colleges that used, it was less than 2% of the colleges in the United States were using SAT subject tests, and less, even less with essays. So years ago when the essay came out, it was supposedly going to be a great way for students to showcase their writing ability. It didn't really happen that way. So they've done away with that. So, and that's a good thing. It's less testing. If you are a student who has registered for the SAT-2, you just need to contact the College Board from your College Board account, and they will refund your money. For international students, I know Simon's on the call. They're going to be offering SAT-2s through June, and then they're not going to offer them to international students after that, because there are some international schools that require SAT-2s, but we'll be dropping them after June. Any other questions? Well, I hope this was helpful for you and that you were able to get an idea, sort of an overview of what is going to happen. I hope you're not more nervous. I hope you're less nervous. I hope you know that we are here to help you, and that we do this a lot. We do college admissions, and BG students always do well in the college admissions process. And we want you to know that we're here for you and that we will support you, and you're in good hands. So we thank you for being on the call, and we hope you have a great night and a good start to your second semester. Thank you, everyone.